Well, today is tax day, the day in which you and more than 100 million other Americans ritually provide the federal government with 10, 20, or even 30% of your income, maybe 40 or higher, to finance our vast federal bureaucracy and various bombing campaigns around the world. Most people hate tax day, but Caroline Heldman is a big fan. It's hard to find him, but we did. She's a political science professor at Occidental College out in California, and she loves tax day so much she wants to expand it bigly. She's called for upping the top tax brackets in America to 80% or more. Professor Heldman joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Tucker.
So I just want to get to motive here for a second. Do you want the tax rate to go up to pay for more stuff or as a way to punish rich people?
Well, neither of those things. And let's be clear, I'm not talking about taxes for your viewers. I'm talking about taxes for the top 1%. And I'm not even talking about all of their income. I'm talking about the marginal tax rate, the highest rate, which right now is set at $470,000. So I'm talking about wealthy individuals who on $470,000 plus would be taxed at a much higher rate than they are now. And in fact, historically, for example, under Eisenhower and JFK, they were taxed at 91%. Now they're taxed at less than 40%. And this has meant that we've scrimped on the social safety net. We've scrimped on education. There are lots of things that this money could go for.
Well, we spend more on those than almost anyone else in the world. But to answer my question, I mean, you want to buy more stuff. It's not just because you object to the existence of rich people. You're not trying to hurt them. You just want to pay for more stuff.
Well, I don't think rich people are held to the same standards as other taxpayers. So I think that there are loopholes in their armies of lawyers and estate planners that allow them to hide their wealth. I would like to see that money go into the economy. I mean, taxes are the price we pay for civilization. I would love to see, free higher education. I would love to see our infrastructure, our crumbling infrastructure system funded in the United States. There are a lot of things that this money could go for if, wealthy people were fairly taxed, and they just aren't.
So you're from an affluent family. What does your mom think of this?
My parents, my family gives a lot in philanthropy, just as I do. I'm not on the top 1%, but, we are people who practice what we preach, and that means that you give a lot of money away in terms of nonprofits. I also use tipping of servers as a mechanism for redistributing wealth.
I'm confused. Okay, no, but I'm for all those things. I'm for philanthropy, and I'm especially for tipping waiters. I agree with you 100% on that, and so God bless you.
Glad to hear it, Tucker.
But you're asking other people to give their money to the government. Why aren't you giving 70% of your income to the government? You could.
Well, I'm not on the top 1%, but I have no issue.
You don't need to be.
Well, that's the argument I'm making, right? That it's not about working class Americans or people like me who are upper income Americans. It's about really the wealthiest top 1%. Now, I have no issue
you're a college
paying
professor.
taxes.
I'm not attacking you, by the way,
I pay
at all.
about 30%.
But
I know you're not.
Why not pay 70%? I don't understand. Like, what's holding you back? Why not lead by example?
Tucker, you know what's holding me back? If I knew how to do that, I would have no issue doing that. But the tax code is incredibly convoluted.
No, it's totally no. Trust me. Let me simplify it for you. Just write a check, pay your taxes, then figure out what you pay 30%. You said. Just figure out what another 40% of your income would be. Just send it to the U.S. Treasury. Washington D.C. No zip code required.
You know what I do, Tucker? You know what I do instead of that? Because we don't have a fair system of taxation, I write checks to nonprofits that are providing services that the government should be providing. So I write checks to Planned Parenthood. I write checks to nonprofits that provide a safety net for Americans. So it has the same effect.
I think you may be, but it doesn't actually. So why not pass a law requiring people to send money to charities that are more effective than the government is? I mean, so you're basically conceding.
That would be great too, as long as the 1%
is not the most efficient way to lift up the poor. Then why won't you send it to the government then?
Tucker, I would say this train wreck of a Trump government is certainly not the best way to serve the poor, since they have no interest in serving the poor. But in general, I think government does a fine job providing the services
I'm just asking you to practice what you preach. Let me just ask you one other question here.
I do practice what I preach.
Well, you don't. You're telling other people to send their money to the government, and you're not. So, like,
I'm telling the top 1%. No, Tucker, don't put words in my mouth. I am telling the top 1%. I am saying the government needs to tax them fairly. If we're going to talk about taxation, I actually think I'm taxed pretty fairly. I choose to spend way more than the majority of my income on other people. I choose to do that. But we're not talking about me. We're talking about.
Of course, we're not talking about you. You don't want to do it.
We're talking about the top 1%.
It sounds awful.
Tucker,
70%
no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to lie. You don't get. No, Tucker, you don't get to put words in my mouth. We're talking about the top 1%.
Professor.
You're noting the obvious. I'm not in the top 1%. It's not about me. This is not an argument about about
but
me.
not you. Oh, it's not
yes,
about you. Okay, I get it.
yes,
It's never
yes.
about,
That's
it's
the
never
argument.
About the people proposing it. Let me ask you one quick question, though. I understand.
It's the marginal tax rate on the top wealthiest
There's
Americans.
a real
That's what we're
concern,
talking
I think, about accumulation of wealth at the top. It's probably not good for society. I bet we agree on that.
It's not.
But it's not
Yes.
about income. It's not about your income taxes. It's about capital gains taxes, taxes on investment, on capital that is working. That's when people get rich. Nobody's making $1 billion from a salary. Are you suggesting raising the capital gains tax rate to 70% too?
I am suggesting raising the capital gains tax on the wealthiest 1%. I am suggesting raising the income tax.
To what?
You know, economists say somewhere around 50% would be good. Income tax, you can go as high as 83%, and it won't suppress wealth pursuit.
But why would you want to tax
also,
labor
I would like
more
to
than
see,
capital? Why are you giving a pass to rich investors? I don't understand. Just why are you taxing working people?
The wealthiest 1%. I would like to tax them at higher rates across the board on their salary, on their investments, and also on what they're passing to the future generations. I want to see the death tax go up. I want to see all of it go up because right now the top 1% do not pay their fair share.
Okay,
they
we
just
gotta
don't.
go. But call me when you start sending all your money to the government, and then I'll follow. I'll follow suit. It's hilarious.
I'll call you when I'm on the top 1%. How's that, Tucker?
Perfect. We'll have lunch. Thanks, Professor.
To the details of what really they're asking for here, Kelly Mullen, a Million Student March national event organizer. Kelly, good to have you. Keely, I'm sorry. Is it Keely or Kelly?
That's okay. It's Keely.
I apologize. So what do you
Totally
want here?
fine.
What do you want?
Well, so the movement, the Million Student March, is a movement for a more equitable and fair system of education, as opposed to the really corporate model that we have right now. So the three core demands of the National Day of Action are free public college, a cancellation of student debt, and a $15 an hour minimum wage for people who work on the campus.
And how's that going to be paid?
Great question. I mean, you know, so I'm not sure if you're talking on like a national level or at particular schools. I can sort of touch on both. At
Well,
my
if you wanted
university,
all that
Northeastern
stuff,
University,
someone asked to pick up the tab. Who would that be?
the 1% of people in society that are hoarding the wealth and really sort of causing a catastrophe that students are facing. I mean, we have a relationship right now where 1% of the population owns more wealth than the 99% combined.
All right, so if the 1%,
Kelly,
if the 1% just had their taxes raised a few years ago back to almost 40%, then to pay for the health care law, they had them raised another few percentage points. Then they had their deductions limited to raise another couple points, where depending on the state or locality, they're pushing over about 50% in taxes. How much higher do you think? How much more do you think they should pay?
I think enough until we have a system where not 1 in 2 American families are threatened with poverty.
So where do they go? Let's say if you tax them, they're smart folks, these people, these 1% hoarders, right? So if they leave here, then who's going to pay for all this stuff that you want?
If they leave
the country.
I mean, there's always going to be a 1% in the U.S. The U.S. is like the bastion of capitalism and its success, and I think
that... Do you think the 1% could pay for all of this?
Absolutely. 85 people in the world hold more wealth than half of the global population.
No, wait a minute.
I mean,
are we talking about 85 billionaires, or are you extending this to the 1%? Or whomever who earn a little bit north of $250,000. At what level, Keely, do you start saying you got to pay a hell of a lot more than you're paying now in taxes?
I mean, I think people earning, certainly people earning over $1 million a year should be contributing to the wellness of society.
If it's 50% now, let's say it's around 50% with taxes. We used to have a top rate of 90%. Do you think we should get back to that?
I mean, I think that eventually we will get back to that. I think eventually.
You're okay with that? Are some of your friends okay with that? Do some of them want to be successful themselves, and they'd be happy when they get to a level, maybe over 200,000, 250,000, they start paying 90% in taxes on that? They'll be happy with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that
Keely, come on, you're talking to me here. Your friends are going to be happy getting to a point in their career when they can look outside and say, finally, I'm able to pay 90% in taxes.
Obviously, you know, people in your position, you know, don't want to pay 90% in taxes.
I dare say, unless you're high as a kite, you wouldn't volunteer to pay 90%, right? I mean, unless you really did see a considerable bang for the buck and it was worth it, right? But a lot of the times that you realize it's not worth it, and given some of the track records we've seen with government, it doesn't always work, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But the reality is we have to look at the injustice of the system as it exists right now.
Then do you think maybe if everyone paid a little bit more for this, would you pay a little bit more for this, besides the rich, to pay for that it's worth it? That you think these are good goals?
People already are paying for this.
No, I asked it differently. I asked you, would you, Keely, and your friends, and your mom, and your dad, and your family, would they happily pay more to provide all of these benefits you just outlined?
Of course, and we already are.
No. You just said to pay for some of the things you wanted, the rich should pay significantly more than they're paying right now. Now you're telling me...
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Everyone's already paying.
Well, they're not. I mean, now you're saying for these added benefits that you want, and they're fine benefits, don't get me wrong. You think your friends, their parents, your family would be happy to pay a little bit more to provide these guarantees and benefits.
I come from an incredibly working class family, and my family is already on numerous forms of government assistance and is basically scraping by, in order to get me through college. I live in a world and I see a system around me where there's a population that's doing nothing to contribute to the progression of society. Education is really the only way that we have innovation, that we have...
Keely, I'm sure you sound very smart. You know what's going on. You mentioned what's going on in the world. You're probably aware what's happening in Greece and these other countries that provided all these benefits and then some, many of which you outlined very nicely here for us today. And they're going broke, and they're out of money, and they don't know what to do. And their people are riding on the streets because they can't believe the money's gone and the benefits and the promises are gone.
Right.
What do you think?
I mean, there's a global catastrophe right now of complete defunding of social services and
because
defunding
they ran out of money.
Of public.
You know what happened, Keely? They just ran out of money. Right?
I understand, but there is a 1% in Greece. There's a 1% in the United States. There's a 1%. There's a ruling class in absolutely every...
I don't doubt there is, Keely. I don't doubt there is, but obviously they've been trying to tap them to get money from, and they realize either they don't have the money or they hid from the money. They're gone. They're gone. Yeah. And now these countries are going
bust.
Those
people need to be accountable.
All right, fine, but they're smart and they're scurrying all over the globe. So now even if
they are, and that's a problem.
All right, but they've done studies on this, Keely. I don't want to get boring here. But even if you were to take the 1% and take all of their money, tax it 100%, do you know that couldn't keep Medicare, just Medicare in this country going for 3 years? Did you know that?
If we're to a point where the rich is paying 100% on their taxes, then we're on the road to socialism, and we're going to have a completely different type of public infrastructure.
No, what I told you is that even if you took all the money from the rich who you say are getting away with murder, and you took it all away, it wouldn't support one entitlement in this country for 3 years.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just don't. That sounds completely ludicrous to me.
Do you know how much it will cost to mandate a $15 minimum wage across the country, to have everyone's student loan debt paid off, to pay for public college for everyone?
How much?
Do you have a rough idea on the cost of just the educational part, on the student loan part and the public college part?
Absolutely. $1.3 trillion in student debt. That's just a beginning. And then billions and billions of dollars.
Do you know how much you get fully taxing the 1%? 100%.
I don't know. Is it close to the number, the $16 trillion that we spent to bail out the banks?
Hear what I'm saying, because I just want this to be a math reminder. $1 trillion, which would barely keep Medicare going for 3 years. That's one area. Even if we repositioned it to go into this area that you want, we don't have enough to do it. So you're going to have to find other means of getting money, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a starting point. I mean, I think that all of these things require a really comprehensive program.
No doubt. But do you fear, Keely, I guess what I'm asking you, you're passionate about this, and I admire that passion and your involvement in this, but I think you have to step back and look at the numbers that could be involved here, because they're going to be huge. Right. And a lot of those, a college behind you and institutions behind you, knowing that student debt is taken care of, it's forgiven and done, Do you think any of those guys, any of those administrators, any of those schools aren't going to leap at the opportunity to gouge even more, to raise tuitions even more, to raise room and board even more?
Well, I mean, ideally, if we have a big enough mass movement of people in the streets, we can actually prevent things like that from happening.